Hello, good evening. Good evening and welcome to another of my very best bedtime Bible stories. I'm Berry Bear, the bear with flair, who's debonair beyond compare, without a care, your bedtime Bible storyteller extraordinaire. Oh, I'm glad you've decided to pay us a visit. You remember Buzzy, don't you? Say hello, Buzzy. Yes, good. Now, let's see. What story would you like to hear tonight? Let's see. Well. What? Oh, no. I was saying well, not whale. Now, wait. That's it, yes. I've got just the story, and it's a whale of a tale. The story of Jonah and the whale, you get it? A whale of a tale. Oh, never mind. Well, here we go. Here's the story of Jonah and the whale. A long time ago, in olden days, in the days of the Old Testament, the Lord had a special job for a man named Jonah, and also a job for a whale. The two had never met, of course. I mean, where would a whale and a man get to know each other? But they would. Oh, yes, they would. Now the Lord wanted Jonah to go and preach to the evil city of Nineveh. The Lord called to Jonah while he was asleep.
Jonah. Jonah. Jonah.
With that last call, Jonah woke and nearly hit the ceiling with fear.
Arg! Ouch!
Jonah bumped his head when he woke up.
Who's there? And what do you want with me?
I have need of thee. Arise and go to Nineveh.
Jonah groaned again.
Arg! Who is this speaking to me?
Jonah, I am the Lord your God. Arise and go to Nineveh. I have need of thee.
Jonah was very afraid. You see, going to Nineveh was a job that called for courage and daring and bravery. And Jonah was a man who wasn't brave, courageous, and daring. Or at least he didn't think so. Because when the Lord said, "Jonah, get up and go to Nineveh," Jonah became anything but daring. He became so afraid that instead of answering the Lord, he got up, left town, and got on a boat to hide from the Lord. He didn't even pack any clothes. You see, Nineveh was a big city and an evil city. The people had turned their backs on the Lord. It was full of people who would have scared anyone. So you see, naturally, Jonah was afraid. He let his fear get the best of him rather than do what the Lord asked. Actually, most of us are like that, aren't we? Except bears, of course. Well, okay, bears are afraid too, sometimes. But Jonah just didn't trust himself, when he should have been putting his trust in God. Jonah thought running away would be easier than facing all those mean folk in Nineveh, but he was wrong. He was very wrong. Well, Jonah decided to run away from God, so he got on a boat to go far, far away. Hey, what do you think you're doing? Where do you think you're going? A sailor had him by the neck.
Mr. Sailor, are you about to set sail?
We sure are. What's it to you? Jonah didn't like that gruff and grumpy sailor. I heard that, Buzzy. Bears are not like that at all. Shh, let's listen.
I'm in need of a ride, yes. I sure am. And a quick one, too.
Quick, too, eh? The sailor still had him by the scruff of the neck.
Hey, watch that. That hurts.
You in trouble, mister? Folks what needs a quick ride on a boat seems to always be in trouble. Jonah was afraid of the sailor, but he knew if he told him why he was running, the sailor wouldn't let him go on the boat. So he told a story to the sailor. He didn't tell the truth that he was running from the Lord.
No, sir, I'm not in trouble, not me. I just need a ride.
Well, all right then. Hop on. Here you go. You don't seem like trouble. Guess it can't hurt none. But if me boss finds out about it, I'm gonna come crawling off. And with that, they pushed out to sea. Just then, the sky that had been so blue turned a deep grey, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Jonah pretended not to notice, but he was shaking really badly, and the sailor noticed Jonah shaking. Here now, don't worry about that thunder. It's way off from here. Can't hurt us none. This is a boat full of God-fearing men. You're all right with us. And with that, Jonah began to feel sick inside, because he knew he was doing wrong and that he was running from the Lord. He didn't want to see any of the other sailors, so he went down into the bottom of the boat and hid. The boat set sail, and all seemed well for a while. Jonah thought he just might have escaped the Lord's command. All of a sudden the wind began to blow, and the boat began to rock and to creak, then to tip and roll from side to side. And the rain was so hard it was louder than the waves. Jonah began to moan and then wail because the storm outside was tossing him around like a loose piece of baggage. And he hit his head, and a big knot came up on his forehead. Jonah knew it was all his fault. The Lord had caused the storm to get Jonah's attention, and Jonah knew it. Then he heard the sailors talking to the sailor who brought Jonah on board. They were scared, and their tone of voice was not polite. They were mad at the sailor, but he said, "It must be that feller down below. I knew he was trouble the minute I laid eyes on him. It's all his fault." So the sailors went down and brought Jonah up from below to face the storm. And there, amidst the crashing waves and the pounding rain, Jonah finally spoke the truth.
Hi, it is my fault. I caused the storm because I disobeyed the word of God. You'd better throw me into the ocean. If you throw me over the side of the boat into the water, then the Lord will calm the storm.
Jonah felt much better now that he'd spoken the truth. But his heart jumped because he knew to save the sailors, he'd have to go into the stormy water, and no man could swim in that. He thought for sure he would drown. The sailors believed the only way to calm the storm was to toss Jonah into the sea. So they did.
I can't swim. I'm drowning. I didn't mean it. No.
Jonah thought for sure his life was over. But the Lord had other plans for Jonah. You see, the Lord hadn't forgotten about that evil city, Nineveh, and the job he had for Jonah. Now, here's where the whale comes into the story. The Lord sent the whale to save Jonah. Guess what that whale did? That's right, Fuzzy. The whale swallowed Jonah whole. Oh, no. He didn't eat him. He just swallowed him to protect him from drowning. Jonah cried out from inside the whale. Then that whale swam to the bottom of the sea as fast as he could and swam away. After a long time, Jonah woke up and realized what had happened. He knew the Lord had saved him. He wondered what would happen next. He was too afraid to speak and too ashamed to ask forgiveness because he hadn't obeyed God. Jonah thought he might die inside that fish. And after 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah finally found the strength to pray.
I will do what you ask me, Lord.
Then all at once the whale opened his great mouth and spit Jonah right out on dry land. And Jonah went and did as the Lord commanded. And along the way, Jonah knew that whatever he would face in Nineveh, that evil city, would be nothing like what he faced by running from the Lord. No, Buzzy, I don't know what the whale's name was. Yes, Albert would be a good name for a whale, but I don't think that was it. That's enough now. Yes, it could have been a girl whale, too. Cynthia would make a pretty name. Oh, never mind. That doesn't matter, Buzzy. But what does matter is that Jonah learned to listen to God and to do what God wanted him to do. Don't forget, God won't ask us to do something we can't do. He promised he will always be there for you. Oh, well, it's about time for bed now. Say your prayers, and you sleep tight too, all right? Good. Buzzy says good night too. Have sweet dreams, and remember, God loves you just like he loved Jonah.
Jonah, why you taking a ship? Why you sailing on the deep blue sea? Jonah, why you making a trip? Don't you know that he knows where you'll be? Jonah, why you running from the Lord? Don't you think you may have gone too far? Jonah, why you going overboard? Don't you know that he knows where you are? God sent a fish to swallow him down, to swallow Jonah so he would not drown. God provided Jonah with a way to turn himself around, to obey. From the belly of the fish in the middle of the sea, Jonah prayed to the Lord, and he promised to be a faithful missionary, and was delivered safely to shore. The whale knew very well what God's will was all about, so he opened up his mouth and he spit Jonah out. Jonah, now he's gone to Nineveh, gonna share God's good news. Now he knows all he ever had to be was willing to be used. Don't you know that he knows where you are? You could never ever run too far. Will you do what he wants you to do? He has promised he will be there for you. Jonah, he knows where you are. He is there for you. He loved Jonah, and he loves you too. Jonah.
It's Berry Bear's very best bedtime Bible stories for you.
Well, good evening. Good evening. This is your old friend Berry Bear, back with another bedtime Bible story just for you. Oh, yes, and of course you remember Buzzy Bee, don't you? Of course you do. He's my sweet little bee friend who loves to hear bedtime Bible stories. Buzzy says he's very glad you're here because we've been having a debate. A discussion. Oh, all right, a talk. At any rate, we've been trying to answer a question. Here it is. Which is better, pebbles or swords? No, I suppose that doesn't make much sense, does it? Well, perhaps let's see. How shall I explain? You see, Buzzy and I were talking about the story of David and Goliath. Do you know that story? Well, let me tell it to you, and then you can help us answer the question, all right? Good. Let's see. Where is that story in the Bible? Let's see, yes, the story of David and Goliath. 1 Samuel chapter 17. Yes, good. Now, when David was a very young boy, he served Saul, the king of Israel. David was a shepherd and a musician. He was known throughout the kingdom as a wonderful harp player. And that's just why King Saul had him in his service. Do you know what a harp is? It's an instrument which has strings on it and makes beautiful music. David would get his harp and play it whenever Saul felt badly. And soon the king would feel good again. Now during this time, the Philistines, an army from another kingdom, came and prepared to do battle against King Saul. When Saul found out, he got his army together and went out to meet them. The Philistines camped on one hill, and Saul's army of Israel camped on another hill directly across from the Philistines. But there was no battle. The two armies just looked at one another and waited. Something seemed wrong to the Israelites. Why weren't the Philistines attacking? Then they found out. The Philistines had a secret weapon, a giant over 9 feet tall. That's right, Buzzy. He was taller than a bear, and bigger too. The giant's name was Goliath. He walked down the hill to the valley between the two armies and yelled across to Saul's army in the loudest voice you ever heard.
Choose your best man to come and fight me, man to man, 1-on-1. If he wins, we will surrender to you. But if I win, you must surrender to us.
With that, he let out a giant laugh that rocked the hillside. The Philistines cheered, and the Israelites were stunned. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. He was the biggest man in the world. Who could defeat him? Every day Goliath would come forth and issue his challenge.
Choose your best man to come and fight me, man to man, 1-on-1. If he wins, we will surrender to you. But if I win, you must surrender to us.
Every day the Philistines would cheer, and the Israelites would be silent. This went on for 40 days. Now David knew nothing of this, for he was not allowed to go to the battle. But his brothers were there, and David was sent to the camp to take them food. David's mother wanted to know what was going on out there, and David was told to find out. Little David arrived just in time to see Goliath and hear his challenge.
Choose your best man to come and fight me, man to man, 1-on-1. If he wins, we will surrender to you. But if I win, you must surrender to us.
This particular day, Goliath came at a different time and caught everyone off guard, and they ran away in fear. David couldn't believe what he was seeing. David went from man to man to ask what was happening.
What's going on? What's all this about? Who is that giant, and why are you running?
No one would talk to him, so David got in the way of one man who kept running and knocked David down. The man said,
King Saul has promised to give a big reward to the man who beats Goliath in battle, and the king will also give him his daughter to marry. But who cares about that? I'm getting out of here, and you'd better do the same.
Then the man ran away. David couldn't find his brothers anywhere. But wait, there was his oldest brother hiding behind some rocks. David went over to him.
What are you doing, brother?
Shh! Get down! Are you crazy? What are you doing here? You should be back watching your sheep. I can't believe you're here. It's dangerous here.
David wanted to find out more about the challenge and the reward as well.
But what about the reward? Surely if the Lord is on our side, then...
You can't beat Goliath, so go on home.
And with that, his brother was gone, looking for a new hiding place. David had had enough. He went directly to the king.
Your Majesty, who is this giant Goliath to defy the army of God? No one should be afraid. I will go and fight him.
The king said,
You're just a boy. Go and get your harp and play me a song, then go back and tend your sheep.
But David would not listen.
I have beaten lions and bears in defense of my sheep. The Lord will protect me from this giant Goliath.
King Saul thought he could show the boy he wasn't ready to fight by putting his armor on David. Of course it was too big and clumsy, and David couldn't even hold his body straight. Now this is the part where the pebbles come in. So David took off the armor and picked up 5 smooth pebbles from the ground. Then he took out his slingshot and went out to meet Goliath. The king was so shocked, he let David go. You're right, Buzzy. It is a good thing David's mother wasn't there. But since she wasn't, David marched right out to meet Goliath. Word spread among Saul's army, and soon everyone was watching. Yes, they were peeking out from behind the rocks to see what would happen to this young boy David. His brothers were particularly interested. When Goliath saw David, he made fun of him and laughed at him.
You have a sword, and you are a giant. But I come to meet you in the name of the Lord Almighty, whom you have defied. I will defeat you.
A gigantic sigh went up from the army of the Israelites, and the Philistines started to laugh and cheer as Goliath headed for David. David was not afraid. Well, perhaps a little, but he calmly took one of his pebbles, put it in his slingshot, and slung it at Goliath. The stone hit Goliath right in the head, and he fell to the ground defeated. The Philistines couldn't believe their eyes, but Goliath was beaten. The Israelites, who'd been so quiet, began to cheer, and they ran after the Philistines and chased them out of the kingdom. David had won. Now, which do you think is better, pebbles or swords? I believe you're right, Buzzy. David's strength was in his faith in the Lord. And in God's hands, pebbles can beat swords every time. Well, now, I believe it's about time for bed, isn't it? Well, get ready, say your prayers, and have a wonderful night's sleep. This is Berry Bear, your friend with flair, and Buzzy Bee, saying sleep tight, and don't forget, a little bit of faith is plenty with God on your side. Good night.
David was a shepherd shepherd boy who lived so long ago. He was young and handsome and was brave against the foe. When he met Goliath, who was big and strong and mean, he knew God would help defeat that giant Philistine. Just a stone and a little piece of leather, a little courage, a little danger. What do you get when you put them all together? David got a victory of faith. David knew Goliath stood at 9 feet tall or more, and he wore a coat of armor, swung a mighty sword. When he saw this little boy, he must have been surprised. Suddenly the stone had landed right between his eyes. Just a stone and little piece of leather, a little courage, a little danger, What do you get when you put them all together? David got a victory of faith. David got a victory of faith. When you close your eyes tonight and start to fall asleep, think about the little boy who used to watch the sheep. With a sling and not a sword, David trusted in the Lord. With one swing he